Hi guys, how is everybody? This is Nana, and I have a very special panel today for you as we are into the second panel of Sunday, which is Army of the Dead Day. And before I bring my guests in, I just want to remind you all there is a fundraiser for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention attached under every video. We should be a little over $11,000 today. But I have a goal for you guys, and that is if we can raise $20,000 today, we will for sure cross $750,000 in total donations for to the AFSP as a movement. So here's your goal: make it happen. So without further ado, let me bring in four absolutely amazing ladies. And we will talk a little bit about what it is to work behind the scenes on the movie. So let me bring in Dody, Stephanie, Julie, and Misha. Hello, ladies. How are you today?
Great.
Good.
How are you doing?
Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm sure audience is very excited to hear from you, and so am I. So I'd like to know a bit about you, every single one of you, because you work behind the cameras where nobody can see you, but you're doing really important work to make movies what they are. So let's start with Dody. What is your job?
I'm a film editor.
Okay.
You mean like in depth? So basically,
yeah, tell us in depth. Tell us in depth what you do.
I get all the material I kind of look at it like a funnel, but it's a lot of people, these women involved, and maybe hundreds of other people who make it all happen, of course, led by Zack or whatever director, and it comes into my room. And I have to parse it all out, figure out what will stay in, what will go out, what the rhythms are, and then manifest most important, the vision of the director, so that you see a seamless piece of art / cinema that feels cohesive and entertaining.
It's amazing. You told me a little story behind the scenes before we started the panel. Could you show us? Because I really liked it with the straw.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was, of course, worried about my Zoom angle. so I said, but can you tell what I'm doing?
And we said that we can. You were asking if we can tell that you're drinking from a straw, and we said yes.
Right. But so the director might choose to frame something like this, and it's a little mysterious, but then reveal, I'm drinking from a straw. It seems really stupid and simple, but it's a way, withholding is a way of creating suspense. So you create something where you don't always show everything all the time, because you're creating the suspense through withholding, and then you give a clue, and that makes the audience, they kind of try to see off the edge of the frame or imagine off the edge of the frame. And those kind of things I have to deal with all the time, because as digital and non-dailies has kind of become the way of working. I'm working for many, many months before I sit down with the director, even if I'm working simultaneously during the shoot, because we don't watch dailies anymore. So I have to interpret what the director is trying to say through the images that I get. It might be from some of the script supervisor's notes, but the images are really telling me. And especially since Zack shot this, I was the DP. I thought about it very carefully as I was examining the dailies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Stephanie, what is your job on the movie?
I am the costume designer on the film. So every piece of clothing that is on everybody's bodies, from Dave down to every last shambler, and I have an amazing team. There's a bunch of us, and we make sure that it helps move the story along, is what Zack is envisioning, and that's pretty much it.
So can I ask what the process is like? So when you're hired for the movie, you're the one who comes up with what the costumes are going to look like. Am I assuming correctly?
Pretty much. I mean, it's definitely a collaboration. So, it starts with the script, and the script, oftentimes when you read a script, you see it in your mind, like as you're reading it. And, you don't just read it once, you read it many times. And as you read it and as you're talking to your director, to Zack, who is an amazing collaborator and has such like a clear and focused vision, some of that stuff starts to come into focus more. And one of the tools that I like to use, in addition to like grabbing research images from everywhere, from online, from real life, is we like to do concept art. And so I'll work with illustrators, amazing concept artists, to create these snapshots of our characters, essence of their main look, and it helps inform the crews, the people that go out shopping, the people that are in the workroom making stuff from scratch. And, I'm along every step of the way to make sure that we're staying true to the vision. And then it comes together miraculously.
With a lot of hard work. But like we've seen the trailer for Army of the Dead, and I can tell you the costumes look absolutely amazing. We are all excited, especially like watching the zombies, seeing the zombie queen. That was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, she was a lot of fun. She was a lot of fun to create, for sure.
Misha, what is your job on the movie?
Wow, where do I begin? I'm the first assistant director, so there's a team of us, just second, and so on and so on. So there's about 5 of us, and I come on first. I've been working with Zack and Deb and Wes for about 14 years now. So it's sort of a natural thing for us to come on, and I start digging in and finding out practically what will this take to shoot? How many days will it take? How many extras will we need? How many cars will we need? How many locations are there? Where should we go? And then from there, we start building out a schedule, and then we'll hit the road and we'll start looking at places together. And then that will inform me as to how to put together a best sort of schedule with the best rhythm and to give us the most time in each location. And then we start casting. And of course, then locations aren't available and cast can't come. And don't always work out perfectly. And somebody gets sick or there's a thunderstorm or on and on and on and on. So it's a very organic thing. And every day we revise, refine, redefine, and we move on. There's always something. And I think that's the strength of our relationship as a crew working together so long. We have the best laid plans, and then we're ready to deviate at a moment's notice.
Okay. So yeah, I know this, like when you're planning this stuff, that sounds similar like whenever I'm planning Comic-Con, even though that for me is fun and not a job.
It's fun, it's a challenge, it's a puzzle, and then executing it is also another, and it's day after day. For example, 63 days on this one over Albuquerque and New Jersey. So, there's that, and traveling the crew, and something goes wrong, or maybe a costume doesn't come in, or a set isn't going to be ready on time, or it's ready early, and there's just always something.
So it's about being able to be on the move all the time with your mind and your feet.
Yeah, and on this one it was different too with Zack behind the camera. Usually we're together. It's usually Zack, the script supervisor, myself watching one monitor, watching the performance. I'm watching for extras, or just keeping my eyes open for something that may have gone wrong in the background, or a reason we might need to go again, or maybe it's perfect. But on this one, he was behind the camera, so it was hard just sort of to keep watch for a lot of different things, so I could fill him in. And he kind of stepped away.
Okay, Julie.
Hi. I'm Julie. I'm the production designer. So I am working together with, starting mostly with Zack, reading the script and taking in the sets and the locations and figuring out how we're going to, shoot it. Zack and I and Misha usually are, looking at locations and trying to figure out the origin story of it. And then we decide what we're going to build. And we shot in 2 different cities in this one, so we were going back and forth from coast to coast, and just bringing it to life. It was really amazing to work with Zack is also as a cinematographer. And as Stephanie said, he's so present and collaborative. And he's like the first director I've ever worked with who never picks up his phone, which I found like, and looks you straight in the eye and is so like present. So I really, I just really respected that aspect of it. And we worked tirelessly on maneuvering through all the different sets and locations that we were building in Albuquerque. He was always popping up upstairs, and we had all these models of the different sets, especially the bigger ones with the encampment and transitioning into the zombie world, which was so much fun to build and realize in Albuquerque. And Albuquerque was amazing experience. I brought a lot of crew from Los Angeles to support it as well, because it's a smaller town, but the crew there was incredible. And you know, I have sometimes at one time like over like 100 people working on my team. It can be between construction and set deck and paint. And we're always kind of in front of camera, at camera, and behind camera. So we're multitasking and trying to have things ready for Misha, and then also interacting with Stephanie and her crew, like which wardrobe, what color palette, how do they interact? You know, can they fit in this chair? How big are they? So there's a lot of you know, our minds are always like, you know, pinging off each other, sharing information, and, you know, trying to bring, you know, Zack's vision to life as authentically as we can.
Okay. I mean, what all of you described, it sounds a lot like you have to, you basically have to, you know, you speak to Zack, and Zack gives you the idea what he has for the movie, and you have to do a lot of envisioning in your head first before you do the aspect of the jobs that you do. What do you find most challenging about your jobs? Dody, you can start.
Maybe the most challenging is having to cut as fast as possible to make sure that I'm not missing something during the shoot, because that's why they want the editor there in the first place. So I have to look at the material and cut something together as quickly as possible, and then get it in front of the director if I think that there's some aspect that needs to be added to. I will say that on this film, I never made a pickup list, which is the first for me. I've never done a movie where I didn't need to. It's the first time I've worked with Zack, so I didn't know it was going to be so amazing to get the material that I was going to get. It was going to be so fantastic. And he described that he didn't really want to use a lot of inserts, and I thought, okay, that's cool. And then there's one scene where I thought, oh, we could use an insert there, but he said he didn't want to, and I know what's going on. I'm sipping, you know, from a straw off screen. I knew what was going on, and I'm going to trust the audience knows what's going on. And I showed him the scene, and 3 days later in the dailies came this insert that I had imagined I needed, but I didn't tell him. I didn't say anything. He watched the scene. He agreed. Obviously, he needed that insert, and he just picked it up. But other than that, there was two other shots I verbally asked for, and I got those as well. And everything else was so smooth. So I guess that would be the norm. You know, there's a lot of pressure, and Misha knows. Are you done? Did you get everything for that location? Because we're going to tear it down, kind of deal. And that's the kind of calls we get, and it's like, okay, do I really know? Okay, yeah, you know. So that's probably the most strange pressure, because during production, of course, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars a day to be up and running, and you know, they're relying on you to know these things.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that kind of responsibility, to be honest. Stephanie, what do you consider the hardest part of your job?
I would say that's a tough one, because if you take the 10-mile away vision and you look at it, you're seeing like thousands of costumes in various stages of distress, for every single one. And, I don't even know how many costume pieces, and each piece has to get touched X number of times, from shopping it, from fitting it, to aging it, distressing it, doing alterations. So when you look at it from, the 10-mile away view, it's a little overwhelming. But again, I think it speaks to, the collaborative nature of working with Zack and working with this team, that you get answers, and it's an ongoing communication that is really helpful for us to be able to move forward at a pace that makes it so that Misha doesn't have to reschedule something because the costume isn't ready. And I think that in a normal circumstance is definitely a pressure, that you're not getting the answers that you need so that you and your team can move forward. But that wasn't the case. Any time that I've worked with Zack, it's not the case. I think that it definitely speaks to, intimacy is a weird word to use, but that's sort of what it feels like with this team, is that there's, the conversation is always open and ongoing.
Okay, Misha.
Well, I echo Dody a bit, saying, there's a lot of pressure. It is hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. And being the first AD, I'm in charge of running the set and answering to whoever it may be if there's something did go wrong and how I think best we should fix it. Or sometimes the opposite problem is bad too, getting ahead. Because sometimes the next thing might not be ready to shoot, the actor might not be in town, or the location might not be available. So it's a fine line you have to tread every day. Multiple personalities to manage on set between, there's some crew who have a lot of big personalities, and then you have actors, and then you have it's 100 degrees, and people start getting, bad moods start popping up, and you have to kind of manage all that, keep the day moving forward, and then you kind of always have that in the back of your head. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can't screw this up. There's always that worry in the back. But, working with people like the people on the screen here, like being able to call Dody and say, hey, do we need to go back there for anything? It's such a shorthand, and like Stephanie said, an intimacy that really cuts down on a lot of just noise, and we can just really, I think we're all interested in what's best for the movie, and there's not a lot of egos here from Zack all the way down, and that always seems to be the filter. What's best for the movie, and that's how we carry on, and we deal with each other, and I'm always there for answers, and they're always there for me. And if something happens, it's always, and Zack too is a great one. He's the best pivoter in the business, and we'll make it happen. There is a comfort working with this group, as opposed to when I work outside of it. It's like a safety net for a family. And even though there is that pressure of hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's just a whole lot more fun with this thing.
It's about the people you work with.
Yeah.
And we can see it in the movies. This entire community is, we love Zack's movies, and you ladies contributed to that, because those movies are amazing, and as we've just heard, what you do makes those movies happen. Julie, what do you find the hardest about your job?
Well, first of all, like what Misha was saying about family, like the thing that's amazing and cool that I find on almost every project is that you come in and you meet sometimes either people new. This was my first time working with Zack. I was so excited to work with him. He's such a visionary director, and as a production designer, I was excited to just see how his brain worked, and to have him be the director of photography and to be next to him, and he would bring his camera with him almost everywhere, was also just like, it was almost coming to life with us. But the difficult aspect of it is, well, of course, the pressures and things that they talked about, we're responsible for our budgets. Stephanie and I in certain departments are, I don't know how, we all responsible for money, but we have to produce a budget and follow it and and it's a lot of pressure if something is like taking longer, or this material you ordered is all of a sudden 10 times more expensive, or you can't get it and you have to switch it, and you have to FedEx it, and the FedEx costs more than the actual material. I mean, that's what we're dealing with on a daily basis of like problem solving and having a connection with your team and everyone here to make sure that we have it ready, that we're staying on budget, and that we're also like learning the language of Zack. Like, this being my first time with him, I had to learn his language of like how he thinks. And, you know, we're all creative beings, so you're almost having to get into his head. I mean, it may not come out in words, so you may use visual things to show him, or references, or a model, or whatever. So it's really, really fast. We have to learn the language of what the movie is, what the director is, you know, and so that, for me, I found really challenging, is to like, and then all of a sudden it clicks like a safe lock. You're like, oh, I get it, you know, and then you go and you start to do a concept work or something, and you show it to him, and he loves it, and he makes it really big and puts it on the wall, and you're like, yay! So there's that. I mean, but the budget and the schedule, and actually finding crew sometimes when we go on these locations where it's not Los Angeles or a place that has a big pool of people. Like, I was struggling finding carpenters because there was, 10 projects in New Mexico and there's only so many people. And it was 115 degrees. And there was days when it was so windy that it would blow stuff over. And I had containers 3 high that have special, they had to have engineers look at it. And I have to make sure they don't fall over so they don't hurt anyone. So there's all these other things that, everyone doesn't really, know about. They think about maybe the stunts and stuff like that, but we're always thinking about safety and how to build something safe and how to make it safe for the crew. And so there's all these pressures that aren't even creative that come into your world on a daily basis that you have to maneuver through. So.
Okay. So you've all mentioned Zack multiple times. Some of you worked with him for years now. Some of you, it was the first time. How did you come to meet him? How did it happen that you started working with Zack Snyder? What was your journey? Dody?
Good. My agent sent me on this job interview, and one of the most interesting things about it was Misha was there, and I don't know if she was eavesdropping or not, but also Debbie Snyder was there, and Wes Collar, another longtime producing partner, and it was one of the most relaxed, fun interviews I've ever had. And Zack, like Julie mentioned, he had a lot of visual references. He had representations of all the characters in their wardrobe, which I presume Stephanie, you and Zack had worked on, where they already had their look and on large cardboards set up in his office living room. And then he brought out his iPad and he did some drawings. He didn't ask me a lot of questions. We just sort of interacted about the story and what I liked about the script. And to me, I can answer that actually, because I love the script because it was emotional, it was funny, it was action, it was sort of, it was horror, it was so many, it was just a really fun mashup of a bunch of things, and like nothing else I'd ever worked on. And that's also intriguing and exciting. And so we I guess we met for about 45 minutes. And what's notable is that I had an interview the day before for another project. And at the end of that, it was a Zoom thing. I was like, they're not gonna want me, I don't think. And then I'm in my car, I call my agent. Oh yeah, they already called. Zack and Debbie, they wanna hire you. And I thought, now this is exactly what everyone is saying, how decisive Zack is and how much he goes with his guts. Those other people that I said weren't going to hire me, they called like a week later saying they wanted me. And I was just like, no, you lost. Zack decided right away and wanted me. And it was really kind of amazing. I don't think that has ever quite happened before. It was just good synergy, communication, just feeling good and natural together. That would be my answer.
It's amazing. It's always amazing to hear these stories. Stephanie, how did you come to work with Zack and Debbie?
The first film that I worked on was Sucker Punch, and I didn't meet Zack, I didn't meet Deborah West or Misha, but I was back it shot in Canada, and I was in Los Angeles kind of helping the workroom build things. My background is in making things. I love, working with my hands, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's sort of how I navigated the waters of this industry, of this department. And I just loved his vision and the playfulness of such intense material. I don't know, the dichotomies. I'm a big fan of dichotomies, and Zack kind of rode that line. And I was working with Michael Wilkinson, who's designed a number of films for Zack, and Michael is one of my all-time design idols for sure. And then again, worked with Michael as his assistant costume designer on Batman versus Superman, and that's the first time that I met Zack. And I mean, yeah, just he has such a presence, and definitely he's like a magnet. His personality is so playful and so creative, and it's just intrigued and fascinated, and kind of learned to get to know him over Batman versus Superman, and then again over Justice League. And we did a short film right after we wrapped principal photography on Justice League, and really got to it was this small family intimate affair, and just really cut to the essence of Zack's creativity. And I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan, and I'm really excited to be able to work with him and collaborate with him, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my story.
No, I love it, because we tend to generally ask whenever we have guests, even not just Justice Gone, but our stream or so. We'd like to ask, how people came across working with Zack, and it's always really nice to hear the stories, because he's genuinely a great human being. And I mean, we've had the pleasure and privilege to work with him, talk to him, and he's helped us out with stuff before, and it's just it's always nice to hear, because he's just a really great person, and so is Debbie,
for sure. And just his personality and his inclusivityness and genuine kind of inquisitive nature of human beings and stories in general. I'm literally kind of the polar opposite. I'm really not I'm a shy person, I guess. And so having him kind of it feels good collaborating with him, having that balance.
Thank you. Misha, how did you come to work with Zack and Debbie?
I think
you worked with them the longest, haven't you?
I think so.
Of the panel here.
The panel here, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think by virtue of location, I was really lucky. They came up to Vancouver, where I live, to shoot Watchmen. And I remember that was coming, and I thought, I will do anything to get on this movie. I just the graphic novel and Zack and 300, and I was just I will do anything on this movie. And I wasn't a first AD yet. I was still it was earlier. I was 15 years ago. So I tried to figure out who the first AD was. He was coming from Toronto, and I just, I tried everything, pulled every string I could pull to try and get an interview. Got an interview, and then just was please. And I got the job, and I was I just remember that day. I was just over the moon. I couldn't believe my chances of getting this job. So we do the job. It's massive. It's huge. It's I don't know, 100 and something days. I'm on it for 6 months, and I get to know Zack, Deb, and Wes, and it just clicked. It was just right away, an understanding, it's like that. I think you either, and I find that now, even when hiring my own team, it's like, when you know right away if you know. And we all kind of knew, I think. And then I was lucky that they came back again with Sucker Punch, and because we had the relationship, I got hired. I didn't have to jump through all the hoops again and try and get on the job. And then came back for Man of Steel. And then that's when I started traveling with the gang, because we ended up starting in Illinois and then coming to Vancouver. And then, and that by then it was a solid, and 15 years go by, and you're in. And I with other people, because of the post process and everything, and my job is strictly an on-set prep and on-set. And then, when we wrap that last day, I walk away. So I usually do something in between, and then a Zack movie and something in between. And I'm always so happy to get back on the Zack train, that's for sure.
I must say, I genuinely I like your drive. Like, I have to get that job. I really wish I had that kind of, but then again, I probably never came across the kind of job that I want that much. But yeah,
just that subject, like the graphic novel and Zack, and they were coming to Vancouver. I just couldn't.
Watchmen actually was the first movie I've seen from Zack, and it genuinely got me into comics.
Right.
Because when I saw it, I was where I grew up, there's I didn't have much access to comics, and at the time when I saw it, I was actually lying in bed after a quite bad injury, and I kind of had to close off my sports career at the time, and I was having really bad time. But my roommate decided, hey, we gotta pull you out of this. You're just lying here, pitying yourself. Let's watch a movie. And he told me, we are either watching Lord of the Rings with director's commentary, or we're watching Watchmen. And mind you, I have nothing against Lord of the Rings, but I was like, I'm not gonna go through director's commentary of Lord of the Rings. Hear me up with that. It's just not gonna happen. And so we watched Watchmen, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And then, I had to get the graphic novel as well, and I loved the graphic novel also. And then thanks to that, I started, getting a bit more interested in comics and in the stories. And then thanks to Cole, who is my, sort of partner in crime and my teammate, and we make Nerd Queens together. Thanks to her, I got into more comics. And yeah, so I owe Watchmen a lot, because at the time, that movie meant quite a lot to me. So hearing that you wanted to work on Watchmen because of how awesome it was, I can totally relate. It is awesome.
And it was so ambitious, and it's amazing. It's an amazing work of art.
To this day, it's my favorite movie from Zack. Maybe it's because I have such an emotional connection to it, but it's just, I don't think, and all his movies are amazing. Like what you guys doing with him and the movies that you make, it's just amazing. It's just, Watchmen is the closest to my heart, I assume.
Mine too.
Julie, what about you? How did you come to work with Zack?
I think it was my agent also who might have made the initial connection. Although we have some other friends like Zack. I'd worked with Patty Jenkins recently, and his line producer Bergen was someone I worked with also. So you never know. Sometimes there's that, that Kevin Bacon 7 degree separation. And I remember meeting him and going to his studio office in Pasadena, and everyone was so casual, like Dody said, like chilling, and Bergen was on the screen because he lives in Vermont, and we just all had this huge conversation and talked about the script and what we loved about it, and as Dody said, like it was a combination of humor mixed with action and zombies, and my background is kind of the horror genre, so I was excited to step back into that and be a part of making zombies was really fun. And so anyways, Zack was so casual and so like open-hearted, and you know, he's also a great artist and draws all of his like ideas and storyboards. And so like we just sat and connected with, you know, what he'd already, how his vision, and then the rest is history. You know, Albuquerque, New Jersey, and voila, Army of the Dead.
Speaking of Army of the Dead, because that is the movie of the hour. That's the movie that's coming out in a few weeks, and we are super, super excited, especially after the trailer that came out very recently.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about that. What was, you know, was there anything that kind of sets this movie apart from the others that you've worked on? Because your list of credits, all of yours, are pretty impressive. So it's not just, you know, working with Zack, you've worked on other projects also. And so what I'm curious about, you know, when you worked on Army, was there anything that kind of stood out that was different than the other movies? Unique, so to speak. Dody?
Well, going back to Zack being the DP, that was something really exciting, because the way he was shooting was so naturalistic, and there was a ton of handheld material in a kind of scenario that would normally have been much more staid and sort of framed in these steady visions. And partially because Julie could do a lot of work, but that was a setup for visual effects to come in and fill in the rest of the decimated post-apocalyptic Vegas. So it was kind of amazing to me that he was taking, it was kind of, I would even call it kind of risky filmmaking, using old refitted lenses to get this very cinematic look with shallow focus, and trusting the process that the visual effects would work. Obviously, they did all the proper work up front with tracking markers and green screens, et cetera, but it's really kind of magical how what Julie did in concert with Zack's vision and the VFX supervisor and department to bring it all to life. And I would say that was one of the most exciting. And I mean, aside from the zombies, of course, the zombies are amazing. They're just amazing. So, and then the mashup of the genre busting aspect, that is just so special. And we really focused a lot on the emotional storylines through the whole film.
Okay. Stephanie, what, from your perspective, did you find anything unique about this one?
What I would compare it to is our work on Justice League principal photography, where it was this humongous footprint. Misha was there. We remember it was just massive. We took up, like, I don't even know how many sound stages on the Warner Brothers lot in England. And at one point, like in our department, just in the costume department, we had 200 people working, both in all of the workrooms and on set. And it was just so massive. And it was like this, it felt like this game of telephone where you couldn't, like, all of the information, the creative or logistical or technical information, like, kind of got diffused every step of the way. And it just felt, you know, impersonal and not, it just was so huge. I mean, it was great because we were with, you know, our film family and the people that we love, but then taking it to Army of the Dead, where it was just a very small, like, just the essential, and Misha was so good about keeping it that way on set, that while we were on set, you didn't have like a ton of people where you're like, what is that person's job? Like, why are they here? Like on a normal film set where you've got like a gajillion people, like, who knows what they're doing? Like, it kept this very intimate focus group on set at any given time. And that's what made this in particular Army of the Dead so great. It just, there was less filters between the script, Zach's vision, the story, and what it was that we created. And like Dody was talking about with all the cool lenses, like that's not my kind of world. I don't know what it is that I'm looking at. I just know that like what I'm looking at on the monitor that's coming out of Zach's camera is like so cool, and it has this like layer of like, I don't even know what to call it, that I've never seen before. And just the ability for us to have such a small enough footprint to be able to explore that kind of stuff. That's what made this unique.
Misha?
Yeah, for me, it was great because it was the smallest crew we've ever worked with. The lenses were amazing. It was a new experiment, something I've never seen before, and so cool. Like, I can't wait for everybody to see the whole movie. Like, the trailer is awesome. The whole movie like that. I mean, I can't believe Zach's vision, and to pull that off, like a zombie film, a zombie art house film that's funny and is a thriller, but it also is emotional, and it's just everything. It was so much fun. It's the lightest thing we've ever done. Although there's some undertones in there and comments on society as a whole that are dark and a pretty good commentary as to what's going on. But you know, there's just this level of fun and levity, and it's just a ride from start to finish. It is amazing. It was just so much fun. And I think that comes across at everybody, you know, who was involved in the project, from the people playing the zombies to the actors, just to everyone.
It sounds amazing. I mean,
I can't wait for the world to see this.
We can't wait either. Julie?
Well, I mean, as Stephanie and Misha said, Zach from the beginning was like, I want to keep this really small. And he did. He and Deborah were very, very like, let's keep it small, intimate, you know. And so there was this beautiful interaction the whole time with all of us really like seeing each other almost daily, and, you know, a daily hug and good luck and we'll see you later. And then just, you know, really seeing again, Zach, as Misha said, and talked about the lenses, like, you know, he was bring his camera around on the location scouts with the camera and the lenses. And it was really, it was already cinematic, and we hadn't even like, we didn't have, Misha was the stand-in or something. Like, we were shooting, you know, filming her and figuring out how to do it in some of these locations. And it was just such a beautiful process of like, from beginning to start with, and, you know, the storytelling, and it's almost like if you practice something or you see something, it adds layers of more intimacy or humor. And every day the script just, you know, grew and expanded in different ways. It's not just, you know, a zombie film. It does have a lot of emotion and this connection with this father and daughter and like these people who were left behind, and the, you know, the coyote and how she you know, describes this other world, and it was a really beautiful, it ended up being a really unique story of that we all connected to, and I'm really happy with all of this visual effects in the trailer. It looks incredible, and so like, you know, all the pieces kind of came together, as Dody was saying, because there was a lot of visual effects, and we had to all like plan it out and connect and and everyone contributed to it to make it happen. It's not just it's not just a green screen. It was elements of everyone contributing to it. So I think that from the trailer, I was just like, the second one the other day, I was blown away with how gorgeous it is, cinematic, and I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, definitely. So just so that I'm not the only one talking, we've got some audience questions for you. And so I will bring in Cole, and she will bring us some audience questions. So what do you have?
Hello, ladies. So before we get into anything hard-hitting, we've had some pretty much industry questions. I have a fun question for you. So if you were in the zombie apocalypse, what's one thing you use for your job that you would use to defend yourself? Dody?
My brain.
What about you, Misha?
God, I don't use anything. I use my legs. I run. My walking, fashion with my walking.
I would use Sarah Yellen and John Raincock.
I would too.
Yeah, 1000%.
I would have jumped in that awesome taco truck and got the hell out of there. Ran away over a few along the way. You know, why not? We built it.
Okay, so now we're circling back to being a little bit more serious. You know, got to inject some silly into some things. So we have a question for Misha from Mick D, and he's asking, after many years of working as a first and second assistant director, do you ever intend to take on a project as the lead director? And if so, what kind of story would you like to tell?
That's a great question. Yeah, although it's not a natural evolution that the assistant director does become a director, because it's kind of a really logistical sort of planning job. But I myself, yes, I do. I would like to direct. And I think I'd like to start with more a character-driven sort of dramatic piece, as opposed to a more action-driven plot.
Thank you. And for all of you, Ian Levinson asks, what is your favorite genre to work in? Dody?
Yeah, I actually make a point of not having a favorite genre, because my favorite is to do things I've never done before. So I love the fact a lot of editors get pigeonholed, and I feel like I've been very fortunate to not get pigeonholed, partially because of my choices that I just want to do. If I can have a new experience, something different, I'm really excited.
That's a really great way to look at it. Misha?
Yeah, I'd say the same. I like to float around between Justice League, $350 million. And then I came to Vancouver and I did like 30 million. I did Overboard 2 or something crazy, like, $25 million, which it still seems like a lot of money when you say, oh, only $25 million. But, the difference between planning something at that level and then and coming to do a smaller movie, it's a different skill set. And I like to constantly bounce between the two all the time and bring sort of some sensibilities from one to the other that the crew normally just working within the bounds of what they're used to. It's kind of like a new way of looking at it. So trying to bring something from each into the other is really fun for me.
Okay, Stephanie, what's your favorite genre to work in?
The more technically challenging, the better. If it's something that has never been made before, or if you look at it and you're like, I can't even begin to think how to make that, that's what I'm about. If the story is about a fairy princess, super. If the story is about, a bunch of zombies in Las Vegas, even better.
Julie, what about you?
For me, I want to connect to the story first and foremost. Like, I'm inspired by the characters, and the thing that's so amazing about what I do is that I sometimes it's a dissertation on like some weird, thing that I almost have to go back into history and study. Like the project I just worked on was about Afghanistan and the Soviets and the Americans in 1970. So there's this amazing part that you get to dive into like history and research and make yourself a little bit smarter. Maybe it's not even something you can share with anyone but the project, but really the story and the characters, the scripts that really inspire me first and foremost. And then I would say I always want to keep learning technically, building worlds that I've never built before. And that's learning in a different way, technically, creatively, story-wise, things like that.
I love these answers. You guys all really like to make sure you can get sink your teeth into the project and find a new thing you've never done before. Our next question is for Dody from Aaron Moore. he would like to know, what was it like working on 2 Snyder projects simultaneously after never working with him before?
Fortunately, I had worked with Zack in person up until March 13th. So we already had a language developed. We had developed our language. And when the COVID lockdown came, we were able to keep working in a similar way. I had a proxy for my Avid. Our machines were in Burbank, and I was just working over a VPN with a proxy, and Zack had a matching proxy, so he could see exactly what I was doing all the time, and we would talk to each other via FaceTime, and have our editing sessions, and I could show him the screen, and he could see my timeline and bins and everything I was doing. I think probably even more than he would have done when he was in the editing room, because he wasn't a look over my shoulder type of director. But that was what we were able to set up in lockdown. So it was really amazingly fortunate and effective, because both movies, the material had already been kind of tested by high quality media viewing. We had very high quality in the editing room before lockdown. And once we were doing the sharing, the quality went way down. But I had to trust that we had already seen it, knew that what everything looked like, and then just go with it. And the same thing for Justice League, because it had been shot and more or less viewed and put through all of its paces in 2016 and 2017. So I wasn't evaluating new dailies, which is what would have made me very anxious. It would have made me very anxious to do the project the way that we were doing it if I hadn't seen the material in a good viewing environment. So I would say it was a lot of fun, just fun. We managed to get it all done.
And you guys did an amazing job. All of you did. The next question I have is for Stephanie from me, because I'm a little selfish because I love costume design. So I've been trying to weed out not asking too many. But my question is how does it feel to see people cosplaying the costumes you designed or worked on?
It's super duper exciting, like beyond. And just because there's so much thought and process and collaboration, and you go back and forth so much, and then you kind of come to this, like, this is the perfect fabric to make this thing out of, and method, and then it all comes together. And to be able to see people who haven't had the opportunity to be along for the process, the like very long and winding process that it takes from script to screen, to be able to come up with their own methods. It's very, I love it. I saw a guy in London at the Batman versus Superman premiere who had made his own bat suit, and I just remember like how we got, Michael Wilkinson designed that film, and I was assistant costume designer doing a lot of the technical suit stuff, and how we got to that place, and to see how close he got to what we did, where with like millions of dollars of R&D and months, it was like fantastic. I went talking to him for like 15 minutes. It was really cool. Really cool.
That's amazing. As a cosplayer, an artist. Like, I really just love seeing cosplayers recreate all the stuff that you guys do. And sometimes I wonder, do you guys ever like look back and you're like, wait, we could have done that cheaper? Something like that. As you see how a cosplayer does it, but
I will say sometimes, and I'm not going to comment on which projects, but yes, yes.
So.
We have one last question before we wrap it up, and this one's for Julie. It's from Lizzie. She would like to know, what is it like to do design production for a real place like Vegas, but to make it in a post-apocalyptic version?
Okay, I'll give you a quick answer to that as best I can. It's, I mean, Vegas already has a weird feeling to it. So, you know, I think it's just, you know, really thinking about, I mean, it was the combination of Zack and an apocalyptic world of how we envision it and what would happen if you know, the environment and the elements shifted a place. So what does that look like in your mind? And then doing concept work for it. And of course, this had, you know, bombs dropped on it and things like that. So really just researching and thinking about how that would affect this world and bring it to life. And so, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, for coming today. Thank you for spending some time with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for, you know, telling us a little bit about all that stuff that we don't actually get to see. Like, obviously we see it, but we don't know what goes into it. And I just want to remind everybody that AFSP fundraiser is still going. I can see in the chat that we've reached 11,500 now. So let's keep going. Let's hit the 20,000. Let's make sure that we can cross that milestone today. As for, you know, the Army of the Dead, that one is coming out next month, 14th in the selected theaters and 21st of May on Netflix. So make sure that everybody watches it because it's gonna be awesome. And that will be it for the panel. Thank you very much. And bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Nerd Queen.